Hello, and welcome to Paintball Magazine, a program dedicated to the sport of paintball. I'm Tim Cooper, and with me today is Scott Randall from the Michigan Paintball Association. Scott's got lots of goodies to show us, some equipment. He's also brought a video to show us, some video clips from last year's Michigan Paintball Association tournaments, and he's going to talk a little bit about the sport of paintball. So we've got lots coming for you. Stay close.
Great big fat trees. Yep. From here. Yep. Just head that direction. Count out 1,000 up to 5,000.
Right? Okay. You're gonna be off my left.
Ready?
Okay. Biggest position you can.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome back to Paintball Magazine. I'm Tim Cooper. In the studio with me right now is Scott Randall of the Michigan Paintball Association. Scott, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Tim?
Real good. So what is the Michigan Paintball Association, Scott?
Well, Tim, the MPA is a nonprofit organization that oversees and runs a statewide paintball league in the state of Michigan. And the league is very much like a summer softball league.
How is the league organized?
There are divisions established within specific geographic areas. This year there'll be 3 divisions. There's the Southwest and the Northwest, and also the East Division. The Northwest Division covers South Haven to Jackson, Michigan, including Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, and the Southwest Division would cover areas south of Three Rivers down to the northern Indiana, and the East Division would cover basically Detroit, the Detroit metro area, and outlying suburbs.
Paintball's much bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, it is.
How many teams in each division?
Approximately 8 teams max, but there can be less as long as they're even multiples.
When are these tournaments held?
Tournaments are held once a month starting in May. Each division has 4 interdivision game dates, 1 outer division game date, and then the state finals at the end of the season.
So, Scott, teams play 4 home tournaments within their respective divisions, 1 away game, and then the state tournament?
That's right, Tim. Actually, one of the 4 division tournaments is a division playoff, where the top 3 or 4 teams from that division will end up going to the state finals.
Okay. Can you give us some background on how the game is played?
The game is played exactly like the game you may have played as a kid called Capture the Flag, where you have 2 teams of so many people that try to capture each other team's flag and bring it back to their flag station. The only difference here is that you have to be alive to do it, and the eliminated players are out of the game.
I have a feeling being alive helps. How are points scored?
Points are scored by the first team to successfully grab the other player's flag. So that's called a flag grab. That's worth points. Also, there's additional points if a team grabs the opponent's flag and then subsequently hangs it at their own flag station. That's also the end of the game.
Okay. Are the games timed?
Yes, they are. Each game is approximately 25 minutes long. And if there hasn't been any score within 25 minutes, then it's a deadlock game.
Mm-hmm. I assume you're not playing these games in someone's backyard. Where exactly do you play this paintball?
Surprisingly, there is a number of fields around Michigan. Battle Creek, South Haven, Holland, Edwardsburg, quite a few fields.
How large are they?
The fields typically are about 100 yards by 150 yards large. Mostly wooded and some landscape. Sometimes the field owners will put barriers up and things to hide behind and protect yourself from getting hit by paintballs.
Right. Are there judges or referees involved?
Yes, the MPA has 9 referees in each division. 7 of those referees are on the field during each game, and 2 of the referees man the chronograph station.
Scott, it just occurred to me, we've been talking about paintball all this time, and there may be some viewers out there who don't know what paintball is. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, paintball, like I said, is like capture the flag, and there are actual paintballs that are used.
Don't get it on my suit. Don't get it on my suit.
Shot out of a paintball gun that breaks on an opponent and leaves a splatter mark, which eliminates that player. The paintballs are made of a outer shell of gelatin, which is very similar to what's the coating is on translucent vitamins you might take or have seen. And the inside is a biodegradable, non-toxic yellow dye.
Well, Scott, I assume you're not throwing these paintballs at each other. What exactly shoots these things?
Well, Tim, a paintball gun like this one here.
Holy smokes.
This gun is manufactured by a company called Airgun Design, and it's known as a 68 Automag. It's a semi-automatic gun, paintball gun, I should remind you. Has a barrel. Paintballs go in here, and there's a hopper that usually sits up here that loads them.
How many paintballs can that hold at one time?
Well, it depends on the actual hopper container you've got. This particular gun has one that holds 200.
Wow.
200 balls. We have a scope, even though scope is a short-range scope, because the range of these guns really is only accurate to about 100 feet. It fired a couple times for you. It's just air.
Scott, these guns look pretty formidable. Are they dangerous?
They're not a toy, Tim. They certainly don't shoot. They shoot air. They don't shoot real bullets. They shoot paintballs. They're probably less dangerous than a BB gun, but if misused, like anything, they could be injurious to someone.
Are there some safety issues that have to be followed during the paintball game?
Oh, absolutely. Safety is absolute in this game. Most require that a barrel plug or what we call a barrel condom be installed on the guns when you're in a area where there's more than one player, and this prevents accidental discharges. All the guns have a safety on them, like a real gun. Also, players are required to wear safety goggles.
Yeah, that was my next question about eyewear. I would imagine that's got to be a pretty serious safety consideration.
Yeah, it is, and most everybody in sport takes this pretty seriously. You can't play on a field without eye protection and approved eye protection.
Scott, does getting hit by one of these paintballs here hurt?
Not really. At close range, it could cause a welt sometimes, but you got to remember that we're shooting bath beads, equivalent of bath beads, so they do break, and most of the time it's hardly noticed.
Scott, we've been talking a lot about the gun, but I see lots of other stuff here in front of us. What other kind of equipment is involved with this sport?
Well, we mentioned safety goggles earlier. Here is a full head protection system made by Vince goggles.
That thing looks like something out of Desert Storm.
Yes. Besides the goggle system, they have a neoprene head cover and ear covers. By the way, these Vince goggles are made here in Brighton, Michigan, by the way.
Okay. By Michigan.
By Michigan. And back to, we talked earlier about this loader system.
That's the hopper you mentioned, right?
That's correct. This hopper is a view loader. There's many types of these. This holds the paintballs. Paintballs go in here. And the unique thing about this particular loader is that it has an electric eye that monitors the balls dropping into the gun. If a ball jams up in here, because they quite often do because of the size and the amount of balls and weight you have on here, there's an electric eye that monitors that there's a ball stuck and turns basically a mixer inside.
Well, isn't that neat?
That shakes up the balls and keeps the flow going
Sure.
to the gun. That fits on there.
Interesting.
Also, there are ball carry systems that one would wear around their waist. This carries loaders that hold balls. These hold about 100 rounds each.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. How many paintballs do you normally go through in an afternoon of paintball?
Well, probably with this gun, you could shoot up to 800 balls per game.
Wow. Scott, I see a hose there going off to the side there. Is that for propellant?
Yes. Majority of these guns are propelled by CO2 or carbon dioxide.
Like BB pistols, right?
Yeah, it's like the 12 gram. It's just a little bigger tank. This is a 20-ounce CO2 tank. The same propellant that They use in fountains to serve Coca-Cola or Pepsi or what have you. This particular gun has a few other items on it, which we can probably get into in a minute. Oh, one other thing. A uniform or camouflage, camos, are pretty necessary equipment.
Yeah, I imagine you don't want to go out there and blaze orange.
That's correct. You'll probably wish you hadn't.
Right.
So you need probably a set of those as well.
Back to the CO2 tank just for a second. How long does one of those last?
This tank will probably last you about 700 to 800 rounds.
Okay, so probably an afternoon or one day?
That's probably one game worth of paint for this gun. This gun has an exceptional fire rate of probably up to, I think they clocked it up to 9 shots a second.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's quite a few. See, so if you got a heavy trigger, you can use a lot of paintballs.
Well, I know a lot of the viewers out there watching us today are probably wondering how much it's going to cost to get into this sport. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Actually, probably on the low end, a minimum, you probably could get into the sport for about $300 to $400, somewhere in that range. We get you a starter gun, a mask, a safety mask, some kind of a carry system, and a set of fatigues.
Now, when you say a starter gun, what's that mean? Obviously, your gun there has a lot of gizmos and gadgets on it.
Right,
what is a starter gun, and what do these extras cost?
Okay, a starter gun typically would be a probably what they call a pump gun. It wouldn't be a semi-automatic. In other words, you'd have to cock it to shoot it. That's the lower end. Even though the price of semi-automatics, which this is, has come down dramatically, you could get a pump. They're still pretty good guns. Your fire rate isn't as high as a semi-automatic. On this gun, it's pretty well dressed out, as they say. It's got the crown point barrel, which is a barrel brake, and that helps your balls fly straighter through the air. It's got a sight, a dot sight, which helps aiming. It's got a speed loader, which helps balls load into the gun faster, which is an optional item. We're looking at $100, or excuse me, about $40 for the barrel, $100 for the sight, $100 for the loader. The tank itself has a expansion chamber on it.
What's that do for you?
Well, these guns shoot best when they don't have any liquid get into them. As you know, CO2 under low pressures liquefies. So this tank primarily is liquid. And when you open the valve, if you're drawing a lot of CO2 from the tank, you tend to start drawing vapors and liquefied CO2. This is an evaporator chamber, essentially. It forces the CO2 to be evaporated before it comes out the hose to the gun, which actually improves and maintains the gun's performance.
Well, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like you could easily spend $1,000 in this sport.
Yeah, easily.
You know, I've been listening to you talk about paintball, and I'm kind of interested. I know we have some listeners out there who are too. What if you're just not sure you want to spend this kind of money and you'd like to try it first?
For beginner players, most fields allow players to rent guns, and I believe for around $20 you can get a gun, all the safety equipment, and maybe 100 paintballs and play for an afternoon for $20 to try it out.
That's pretty reasonable. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Another cost issue is how much does ammunition cost?
After you buy your gun, the paintballs are probably the next most ongoing expense.
Sure.
Right now, retail, these are about a nickel a piece. So every time you shoot one of these, you're shooting a nickel. In bulk, though, you can buy them as cheap as 3 cents. But nevertheless, this is what you continually need is ammo to play the sport.
Sure.
So after you buy your equipment, the bulk of your money is invested in buying the supplies and ammunition.
Sure. Scott, let's take a minute and talk about the background of paintball. How did this whole thing get started?
Paintball got started probably about 10 to 12 years ago.
That long ago?
Yes, when the Forestry Service was using a paintball gun to mark trees in the woods for cutting down. And the balls were actually enamel balls, and the balls, I think the very first paintballs were made by Nelson Paint Company in Iron Mountain, Michigan, which absolutely still makes the best paintballs
so
on the market.
This sport actually started in Michigan here?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it started in Michigan, but I think part of the products that helped it start came from Michigan.
Okay. So, Scott, this sport doesn't sound like just a passing fad.
No, not really. Actually, last year there were some 5 to 10 pro tournaments with prizes as high as $100,000.
Wow.
And the MPA itself is probably realizing a 30 to 50% growth in membership per year. So I'd say no, it's not a passing fad. It's a very fun and wonderful sport, and you should try it.
I might do that. You were talking about prize tournaments. Are they on the national level?
Yes. There are the MPPL and the IPPL, the International Paintball Players.
International.
International.
This is big.
This is big. They run tournaments. I think both organizations run 4 to 6 tournaments a year in various cities: L.A., New York, Chicago, Florida, Jacksonville. See, I think one's coming up in Florida for the World Cup this year. I believe it's in Orlando. Yeah, it's big. It's big, and all level of players are welcome. I mean, there's the pro level, but usually at all these tournaments, there's also an amateur division. You know, that run on the same tournament dates, but they run 2 separate pro and amateur divisions separately. So.
That would be one of my fears. I mean, I'm new at this. I'm going out there with a bunch of experienced people. I mean, for all I could walk out there in a blaze orange vest. I mean, how do I go out there and feel like you know, that I'm not in over my head?
Like I mentioned before, going to a local field and especially if you can get 10 to 15 of your buddies, people that you're familiar with, maybe people that you work with, you can go and rent the local field for half a day for usually $20 a guy. And you're all on the same level, the same kind of guns, and none of you know anything. So, so that'd be a good place to start, and you can see how fun it is that way.
During a paintball tournament, do you normally travel with a group of people, or do you have a partner? How does that work? Do you spread out?
That's the tip there. There are many tactics, and it takes all 10 guys. And that's another thing I should mention is that there's 5-man teams and 10-man teams, and usually there's tournaments for both. The bottom line is you have to work as a team. The Rambo types get eliminated right away. So teamwork is the teamwork and tactics, and each team has various tactics that they may use playing certain opponents.
Well, I know there might be some people out there who think that people who play paintball are a bunch of warmongers and gun fanatics. What do you have to say about that?
I think if you mention that to most paintball, it upsets most paintball players because that's the farthest thing from the truth. Players that play paintball come from all walks of life. I happen to be an engineer. I know of lawyers that play. I know of blue and white collars that play. I know of some housewives that play. Really? I know of some kids that are on some pretty darn good teams. In fact, there's a 12-year-old boy that his team took second place in the state leagues last year.
Wow.
So it's pretty fun, and it really has no. The only relationship between a war situation or combat situation is that some of the tools we use to play the game are similar to those found in combat. Other than that, there's no correlation whatsoever. It's a good, fun game.
Any injuries with this sport? It looks kind of serious.
Very few, if any, injuries with this sport. In fact, Tim, the National Insurance Bureau keeps statistics on all sports injuries, and paintball is at the bottom of the list.
Wow.
You could probably hurt yourself more often playing softball.
Yeah,
than
I
you
believe
will
that.
paintball.
Sure. What's your season run, Scott? When does this start and when does it end?
The MPA league season, the first league date is scheduled for the first week in May, and there'll be one tournament date per month thereafter.
Okay.
Through the beginning of October.
Scott, you mentioned that the MPA is growing by leaps and bounds. Does that mean there's room for new members and new teams?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, not only are we looking for players, we're looking for full teams. We're looking for referees, potential referees, and we're also looking for field owners that have fields that like to participate. Any of these people should contact us.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of material here tonight. Scott, I want to thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Tim.
And I want to thank all of you out there for being with us as well. And we invite you to keep track of your cable TV listings, your cable access listings, for further paintball updates. Thank you very much.
To find a team to play against, practice, and take the chances and do these Rambo. Let's go.
Well, see, that's just it. When we're down to 3-4 minutes and we're moving nice and smooth, and we've got them down, we're going to run out of time before they can come all the way down to our field. If we're backing them up,
That's their tactic. So all we did wrong here, was the fact that 2 minutes earlier we should have moved on the right.
Right.
You should have. They were heavy on the left.
Okay. Jeff was kind of engaged with Stevens over there, but they were holding it easy. Yeah. You could hold this side from the back all day long with two guys on that edge. Yeah. So I figured I saw a guy come over this way, and so I ran over. When you said call Randall, I was behind you already because I saw a guy come over.
Yeah. But you had to come over and help out on that side, anyways.
It was looking like you might get in trouble, but I wasn't sure. So I came over there, and then I got no timer, but you're right. As soon as you called it, we should have won.
I was like, Randall, come on. You got 20 seconds?
Well, I just got there, and I was trying to assess
There was no time.
where everybody was at, and I didn't have time. And I said, wow. Then when you said there was only 1 minute or something left, I said, oh yeah, we better go.
We need to grab now. Yeah. We had 45 more seconds. We had 3 points.
Yeah. No.
Because they were running. We were hosing everything. How's your gun working, good?
That game, it worked real good.
Speed too?
Yeah, everything was perfect.
Good.
You know, I didn't have any problem seizing up on me or anything.
So we got quite a break now. Or decent.
A couple games.
Okay.
If they
I
take
need
lunch,
another
we got a
case.
lunch in a couple games. There's one game on, so.
Drop back and then I'll show him up.
Turbo went down. And out here.
A whole wad, huh?
Yeah, regular, like we're going to play with it. Oh, did you take my tank? Right there.
Two games and we're up again.
Huh?
2 games and we're up again.